Okay, cool. I started off by doing my research on looking at CO2 emissions within the UK. And the built environment contributes to 40% of the UK's total carbon footprint. Through that, I looked at the residential, and it was 14% of the total carbon CO2 emissions. And I found that quite interesting. So I looked at the energy consumption within these residential houses, and over half of the energy consumption is through daily tasks like plug loads, cooking and heating. I found a quite interesting piece of a statement on the G2H Climate Act, and it said that newly constructed buildings are more energy efficient, but 80% of buildings in 2050 have already been built. So there is a major priority to decarbonate our current stock. From that, I kind of just understood that looking at it's all well and good going forward and creating new technologies for energy efficiency, but if we've got such a surplus in existing infrastructure without CO2, that haven't taken CO2 emissions into account, that's where we should start. So my design from that was looking to combat the rise in carbon footprint and incorporate the idea of self-sustainable housing and infrastructure. I looked at rooftop gardens and rainwater drainage systems, first of all. So what that will create is a self-water management system that will tank rainwater and then distribute and reuse throughout the infrastructure. And I looked at having rooftop gardens for agricultural farming. Huawei had the site before and integrated a market within the site, I think just to make it more permeable, to more walkable. And the idea was to link the agricultural farming and create local produce to sell in the market. Also, I wanted to create a green network infrastructure which would plant certain trees and planting that will help with CO2 emissions. One plant was broadleaf trees, and it has a lifetime. In one lifetime, it can absorb 1 ton of carbon dioxide. One lifetime is 90 to 100 years. What else was I? Yeah, so I wanted to look at solar shading panels, just to create that. Oh wait, I actually need to. Oh yeah, so the idea for the agricultural farming is to also create a cohesive community with the market, and it's kind of the idea that everyone's kind of helping each other and in it together, so that they can all work together to combat the CO2 footprint. And my last design action was looking at solar shading panels. One of the main reasons within infrastructure is the use of heating, the use of daily tasks, and I think that's a really good way of combating that, and it can help improve solar heating and cooling. So yeah, that's pretty much what I've got.
So I'm interested. So one of the main parts of your proposal is this green network infrastructure.
Yeah.
So I think that you have limited yourself to your site only, and there are lots of other routes that you could have considered.
Okay.
And I know that we have set sites,
yeah,
but I think that we all have to think out, and that's where you have to kind of focus. But I think that there's no harm in actually, especially if you're working in studio spaces and you're seeing other, you should be eyeing up other people's rooftops if that's what you want to start doing.
Right.
If you're thinking that for your proposal to kind of really stack up, it's about getting as much green roof network
Yeah.
going on as possible.
Okay.
And thinking about also doing drawings about how it's working or whatever. I feel like you've been a little bit timid.
Right. Okay.
And I think that I want to see it flourish as an idea, and it's just not ambitious enough.
Okay.
I think most of the thing is that most of what you're proposing is already out there, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it's difficult, but maybe we have to push ourselves a bit harder, or be prepared to try out ideas that maybe don't work, but we only find out if we try. But there's little things. I'm not sure about orientation of the site. But do you have solar panels on the north side of the building, or is it east-west?
It's east-west.
But the main light is to the south. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So, is there? I mean, that's just a little thing, but rather than just sort of put the solar panels on the roof if the roof is there,
Yeah.
sort of way of sort of thinking about how you would actually try and get more energy from the sun, if that's what you're looking at. I like the idea of the gardens, the rainwater harvesting and so on.
Yeah.
And roof gardens. Again, that's something I was doing 20 years ago, so I'm sure you can come up with something. Something's happened in the last 2 decades that I think needs to happen, and something will happen in the next decade even. And we're not looking far into the future, and I think that's what you need to think about. Also, the other thing is to look at how people live their lives and ask yourself, is it rather than depend on devices to generate more power, as quite a few students have done, this is something about the way we live our lives and our expectations that could be modified by an architectural shift. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I know what I'm suggesting is elusive, because I can't say like this or like that, because I'm suggesting that you do something that maybe hasn't been tried out, or something that there's less awareness of in this country at least, so that your proposal brings something new to the table. And this applies to everyone. I mean, to a large extent, we have to use what's already available. There's no question of that. And in that respect, you're absolutely right. But we have to go beyond that, because you're not going to be students 20 years ago. You're going to be architects, 20 years time, 30 years time, 40 years time. And that means you've got to sort of be looking ahead for the rest of the summer. So be more ambitious next time.
Okay.
Take a risk. Be willing to make a mistake.
Yeah.
We'll not shoot you down for it. If you make a mistake and you're the first person to point it out, then everybody learns from it, and that's well done you.
Yeah.
No, I'm just thinking as well in terms of what the tutorials that Shahid, you couldn't go to that tutorial, could you?
No.
But in terms of I know, sorry, that you speaking second, Shahid, but kind of drawing over the models, I think if you want to create this kind of network, this infrastructure, did you put the model together this week? Who put the digital model together? Yeah. I mean, that exists. So at the moment, people have just been doing their own sites, but I mean, that model exists precisely so that you guys can propose bigger schemes and sketch them.
Yeah.
So you say, this is my big vision. I'm going to have this whole infrastructure all across. You're showing it like that and saying, now I've modelled it, the little bit that affects my site, but this is the big vision.
Yeah. I get what you're saying.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry, Shahid.
No, that's not. I couldn't have said that better, but I think that's a really good point.
Yeah.
And if I understood, I think one of your comments, if I understood it correctly, that, or maybe it was Jules, is that if you don't have enough roof space to propose that idea, it still wouldn't hurt to get someone else's model tested on that, even with. So I think the idea of representation is not necessarily to represent an idea you already developed. It's another method to test for your own self whether an idea will work or not. So maybe if you're really passionate about having some rooftop, you could have tested on
another site,
something that has a lot of roofscapes. So for example, even that one with the blue and white model. So that could have been a real good site to test it out. So you just take the photograph of that, sketch it, and then see if that's exactly what you want to pursue before committing yourself into a full model.
Okay.
And there you go.
I just say, did you do anything with is that the theatre there?
No, I didn't.
Any reason for ignoring it?
I mean, it was going to be the same concept as the rooftop gardens as well, but nothing
Solar
extra.
energy. I mean, the fact is, it's a theatre. It's used at certain times.
Yeah.
It's very intensive energy demands at certain times. So, you get lots of people in there generating too much heat. You need lots of superpower lights and so on. I think that would take you out of the comfort zone of the domestic solar panel. And who knows what you'd find out by doing it.
Yeah. Okay.
One thing I was going to say is that, so maybe rooftop gardens isn't a new concept, as Ronnie was saying, but you could have come back to what he was saying and say, yeah, but I've done this research and what were the percentages? 80% of the buildings that we have are existing.
Yeah. 40. But yeah.
And we need to work on the existing building stock, which is what Ben would also argue, for example.
Yeah.
And again, what we were saying about before. So this concept exists. People have done it. It's not groundbreaking, but why? But it's not happening. People aren't doing it. So I guess
Right.
that is thinking, how can I make this happen? And then you say to Ronnie, yeah, you're right. I know it exists, but most houses don't have this. Why is this not the case? And this is how I'm enabling this to happen. So it's kind of stepping outside of just representing an architectural idea as a visually and thinking, how do I actually
Propose it.
work this out? What business structure do I need to make this happen? That links to MPL. You know, who would actually be the client? Why? How do I make this stack up?
Yeah.
And that's where you could argue that's where the innovation comes in this particular proposal. It's like actually making it happen.
Yeah.
For me, that's a challenge.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're right. Sue's pointed out, and as you pointed out at the beginning, and I conveniently forgot, you're addressing the big problem.
Yeah.
80% of existing building stock that is thermally inefficient.
Yeah. Exactly.
You're
Okay.
allowed to come back at us.
You can tell what I'm talking about. Most of the time I do.
No, I think so. The idea was that I think a lot of people come across with new technologies and new ways in which we can bring down CO2 emissions. But if there is such a surplus out there already, why don't we start there as opposed to starting on new?
Very strong argument.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Build on it.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.